Welcome to the Noble Art. This is your host Dale. I'm a um, HEMA guy who has been studying HEMA since age 14. I'm age 30 right now, so that's over half my life. I am a philosophy student. I am a lifelong lover of the martial arts, a nerd of boxing, of pugilism, someone who enjoys watching MMA. I have um, trained some in wrestling as well, some in modern boxing, and um, there was a time when I was actually at an MMA gym for a while, and I enjoyed that experience and stuff like that. So in fact, when I was learning boxing, like modern boxing, I kind of learned through them, like through my friends. If anyone of you are in Abilene, Texas, check out Jimmy Chai Kong's MMA gym. Of course, I'm not affiliated with him, so if he gets embarrassed by anything I post, I will not be blamed for it. Obviously, I'm not affiliate with him. Uh, so, that disclaimer. But still, if you're down there and you like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, if you like Muay Thai, boxing even, um, you can go to his gym. Um, you can also find many boxing gyms if you want more traditional boxing. But anyway, explaining my channel. I am focused on vintage martial arts. What do I mean by vintage martial arts? So, eras of HEMA. You have the World War combatives, like Defendo, and so on. American Combat Judo. Um, you have all sorts of French and American combatives from World War One as well, and even British. Although I haven't really come across any British stuff, I'm sure it's out there somewhere. I've come across some Canadian stuff though, and that was interesting. Um, you have before then you have this era which I call the vintage era of martial arts. This is where West and East really first start meeting. This is the first time also when you have recorded martial arts in video formats. You have recorded boxing matches for early Queensberry because right as the video uh, evidence started coming out, boxing was kind of getting away from the earlier London prize ring rules because of a lot of state officials did not like the fact that they allowed bare knuckle boxing. Of course, it was optional. You could actually have gloves on if you wanted to. Um, and there were obviously other changes. I'll get into that in a future era or a future video. So, in this time period, you also had like catch as catch can. You had Savat. You had uh, older boxing pre Queensberry, which is really one of my favorites. I'll do a lot more videos on that than anything else. And you have uh, jujitsu, actual Japanese jujitsu, early judo, um, as it was taught to the West by different sensei in from Japan. Uh, this is very beautiful here. You also have a lot more detail than earlier times of martial arts because people back then they liked to write a lot. They liked to explain different principles constantly. At the same time, you had like the golden era of sports, which also included physical culture. I'm also going to do videos on physical culture because obviously I'm a little bit overweight and out of shape, and I think this would help inspire me to make good stuff. And the origin of a lot of these martial arts comes from different sources, but usually, for almost all of them, it's either connected to some older system of combatives or it was made in the case of British boxing, and as well as American boxing, and in Savate for street fighting or for fun, or folk, and you have a lot of folk wrestling styles, and so a lot of this is actually based on stuff that could theoretically work on the streets. Now, I will do some videos on MMA reviews, boxing reviews in the future. I do believe that the pugilism, which I wanted to teach in this channel, I want to put it back towards the efficiency it used to have, which modern historical boxing has unfortunately been absorbed by the bare knuckles movement in predominantly Britain, which doesn't really care so much about these older techniques. They say, okay, we have the same lineage. No, you don't. You are a bunch of people who like to do these backyard boxing matches with wraps on your hands. You don't really see a lot of actual boxing coming out of that in terms of historical boxing. You do have some really good HEMA instructors. I can name a few names, but I haven't asked them before I did this video, so I'm not going to. But so there is some hope in that sphere, but there's also a danger of historical boxing. The moment it's become kind of beyond a niche to kind of get absorbed into these really bad things like modern bare knuckles boxing. Of course, you can see this type of boxing thrive within the sphere of modern boxing, because in modern boxing, a lot of the stuff you can't do, and a lot of stuff is discouraged. And some techniques in modern boxing only exist because of the virtue of the glove. Like those big gloves, you can do this all you want, and you have the shield. That's not the case in old boxing. Although you do have similar techniques, like in early Queensberry, and in late London prize ring, you will have people do what's called smothering, which is similar to the peekaboo. So they're like this, and they teach you how to get around that. So modern boxing could thrive, though, in MMA, because MMA is very close, similar in function at least, to broken rules boxing. Broken rules boxing is basically similar to MMA, except for there's no ground fighting. So, yes, I do believe that there's a chance where we could actually revive old boxing, and a big part of that is careful research, careful training, getting fighters out there, encouraging competition, encouraging the fight game, spreading the sweet science around. Hopefully, and I would love this, I could, in the future at some point, especially when I lose the weight, get the strength back, get involved in some type of MMA gym with the permission of the MMA gym's owner, and teach some people the actual martial arts that I have learned, and hopefully get some actual professional fighters out. Now, being 30, I do not know if I will ever compete professionally in fighting. That's okay. I would actually prefer coaching. Anyway, I enjoy teaching, but yeah. So, a quick word on my methodology. So, in HEMA, people talk about why or how can you revive an old art. Well, some of this information you cannot get from for like earlier than the vintage era, because there was a gross and significant lack of recorded footage. But you do have some descriptions from chronicles as well as narratives of how people would have fought in fighting, in duels, in war, whatever. So you ought to look at these older footages if you can, from the early Queensberry rules, also from early wrestling, in terms of recorded wrestling. Now, as to stuff before then, I would recommend Boxing Reviewed by Futro. I would also recommend this book by Frank Queen. This is a wonderful book. I actually love Yankee Sullivan. For one, and you'll see this a lot with combo-based boxers, which is actually, by the way, where if you wanted to get involved in modern boxing for whatever reason, since it's very combo-based anyway, you could actually enjoy using some of the techniques, just not a lot of them, from Mendoza and other sources. And when there's a lot of combo-based fighting, or guys are known for their speed, you usually have a higher guard like this. But yeah, this book, it goes round by round and discusses the different fights that Yankee Sullivan, who was once described as having fists like greased lightning, and how he fought. You do want to exercise. You do want to follow the training tips that you get from these older books from the vintage coaches. If you are establishing a club, or if you already are inside a club, you should train with the club and follow whatever your coach says. Be humble, spar a lot, see how these things work in actual fighting. Learn the science. Try to avoid historical dieting. It really doesn't work so well. There are old cures for corpulency that has like lots of alcohol drinking, of beer, which is very high in carbs. You have like all these steaks, meat. The problem with that is, and I do love protein, but the problem with that is, and take this from my experience, if you are not actively weightlifting, you'll get fat off of it. You will lose the health advantage. You will not lose weight. So if you're trying to cure your corpulence, which I'm not fat shaming, by the way, you have to be aware of how active you are. If you're interested in weightlifting, yes, eat as much steak, as much pork, and so on as much as you can. If you're just wanting to lose weight and you don't do a lot